everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the Friday race of the day. It is race 7 at Oaklawn Park. This is a second level allowance slash optional claimer for 62,500. Those in for the claiming tag. And for that price, this being the race of the day, do note that you can get free Formulator or Timeform US all access PPs for this race. The handicap along with us, just go to DRF.com and the race of the day page to get free PPs for Oaklawn race 7 on Friday. Mike, this dirt sprint drew a large field, oversubscribed, 12 runners in the main body, 2 AEs that are actually pretty short prices on the morning line if either one gets in and the connections want to run, but this is a pretty competitive affair.
Yeah, I think it is too. Yeah, you're right to mention the AEs. You do at least have to wait for scratches before you make final decisions, because if either of them get in, maybe you want to reevaluate things. This is an interesting spot, and I think, David, barring any scratches, I think a good spot for the morning line favorite, Attaché, who's he's been really sharp for Chris Hartman. He was in what I think was a way tougher race last week here at Oaklawn, but that race was canceled. So now he turns up here. I think this is a better spot for him.
Yeah, he's just a horse that's been in great form recently, has run nothing but speed figures to make him a contender in here, so I certainly understand why he is pegged as the 5-2 morning line favorite among those in the main body of the race. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector to get a sense of how these horses might sort themselves out early, because it does feel like there is plenty of speed signed on here, but the number 1, Bohemian Beau, I think that the plan is pretty clear with him. He's a horse that has plenty of early speed, does his best running on the front end. They've got to be aggressive from the rail, and we'll see who else wants to push him.
I agree. You just feel like he has no choice but to come out running here. He's got a race or two that will give him a chance, David, if he can get the right trip in there. The real question for Bohemian Beau is class, and then we'll just see how fast they make him go early.
If this pace really heats up, do note that the late pace flag is over the number 9 Chiclet. That is Runaway Jack. He is a real wild card in this field. We'll get to him a little bit later, but let's go through this field in post-position order, beginning with that number 1, Bohemian Beau, the speedy horse breaking from the rail. He came off the layoff last time, hadn't seen him since April, but won this December race, actually at the same level, the non-winners of 2 other than, and eligible for this condition once again, because I think he was even eligible for a first level allowance when he won this race last time, and he's pretty game to battle back on the inside of Chiringo, who's also back in here. He's had a pressured opening quarter, just kept finding more towards the inside. Mike, the big question with him is, are we going to see these big efforts back to back if he runs it again? Because he's just not the most consistent type.
Yeah, exactly. And are we going to see it in a tougher race too? This is a tougher field than that one that he was just in. He was off the layoff there, as was the runner-up Chiringo. They were both off of layoffs in that race. So listen, I guess you could just argue that they both needed one, and they both ran fine there, and maybe they'll even move forward here. I had a tough time getting behind Bohemian Beau, David. I think he's up against it as far as the pace is concerned, even though he's got a figure or two, again, that gives him a chance. To me, this feels like a way tougher spot. Most of his wins, save that last one, they come against Arkansas breds. And when they run him in open company, for the most part, he really struggles.
The number 2 is 2 Eagles River, who has some nice races in his resume. He was actually on the Derby Trail back in 2023, but since then has kind of found his niche as a closing sprinter and was claimed for $80,000 3-back by trainer Mike Maker, actually picking this horse up from Chris Hartman. And he's kind of picked up pieces in both starts for the Maker barn, was closing wide on the synthetic track at Turfway 2-back. And then last time was just trying to make up ground in a muddy track, sealed track race that didn't look like he was necessarily loving the surface that day. Now he's finding himself in a spot where he may get a little more pace to close into. I just kind of wonder if the 6 furlong's still a little sharp for this horse.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I sort of had the same concerns. And then, I mean, I guess you could be lenient for that last race because it was on a wet track. And as you point out, maybe he just didn't like it that much. He was also winning against a super sharp winner there, Red Flag. I just didn't love that performance. I didn't think he ran that great in there. He ran okay 2-back. I know that was on a different surface too. I didn't love that performance. I struggled to get behind this horse. Although I guess if you told me you liked him at some kind of a big price, I wouldn't argue too hard with it.
The number 3 is Chiringo, who really appreciated getting on the Oaklawn Park dirt last year when he won 2 races in a row, 87 and 91 buyers for those victories. As Mike said, he came off a long layoff as well, along with Bohemian Beau in that December 13th allowance race that we took a look at and battled that one down to mid-stretch. Just seemed like he got a little bit tired in the last furlong, which is understandable for a horse coming off a layoff like that. He was also in that allowance race last time that was won by Red Flag, which 2 Eagles River is exiting, as well as some other horse in this field, and I really did not like the trip that he got that day. He was off a little bit slowly from the inside, was keyed in traffic, got shuffled back at a couple points, was just never in position to make any sort of run. It was also his first time over a muddy sealed track. He's probably better on fast going. There is rain predicted on Thursday at Oaklawn Park. We'll see if the track is dry by Friday, but if that is the case, I think Chiringo is a candidate to bounce back here.
Yeah, I'd be willing to give him the wet track excuse for the last one, David. Maybe more than the tough trip excuse, but we'll see how it all plays out. He did have traffic in that race, particularly when they came into the stretch. I'm being honest, I wanted to see him punch a little bit harder because he did get clear in that race about the 8th pole. He had some room there. Just didn't really run after that. But listen, maybe he didn't like the wet track. He's obviously transitioned to dirt really, really well. And so this is the kind of horse, another one, at a price, you could certainly try to stick with this guy third off the layoff and get him to take a step forward here.
The number 4 is Molly's Town, who is another horse that has plenty of early speed. He's generally done his best running against Indiana breds out at Horseshoe Indianapolis, but he did come to Oaklawn Park last time and put in a pretty good effort against a solid field, actually at a higher optional claiming level than this one, defeated by stakes winner Henro. That horse made a big run from off the pace, and watching some of the races over that muddy track on December 27th, it felt to me like some of the horses that showed speed were maybe hanging around for longer than you would have anticipated based on their prices. And I wonder if Molly's Town kind of falls into that category. I personally want to see him do it again.
I agree with you. I feel like we see a lot of that at Oaklawn too, with horses that seem like they're going to get tired and they just don't. It just doesn't really happen. This horse started out 4 for 4 against Indiana breds. He's 2 for 12 since then. Now he's run a couple of fast races, but it seems like he runs those races against weaker competition when he gets really good trips. And if he's going to be part of this pace, I don't think that's a good trip.
Mike, you mentioned the consistency of the number 5 at Taché. He's just run plenty of speed figures that put him right in the mix against this field. He's been in great form recently for trainer Chris Hartman. He is stepping up in class. He was competing in some first level starter races, then a first level allowance last time, and he's won 2 in a row now. Watching each of the last 2 races, he doesn't break that sharply from the gate, but then proceeds to get really aggressive after the first 1/8 of a mile, and we'll pick up the replay of his last race after he had made a big middle move to take the race over. And once he gets to the front, he is pretty hard to pass because he can finish after making that early move. But I do wonder, Mike, if he breaks a step slowly here, drawn right in the middle of the pack, what if he runs into some traffic under this apprentice trying to make that rush up move down the backstretch? That could be a problem for this horse.
I agree with you, and it's. I'm glad that you noted the rider too, because this apprentice rode him last time for the first time, and if you go back and watch that full replay, he had his hands full with this horse. He really struggled to control at Taché. He's got to get him out of the gate here. This horse he's really sharp right now. He was good in that race we just watched. His win at Churchill Two-Back, I thought, was an even better performance. As you've already pointed out, he didn't break great that day, but he got settled on the outside. He made a huge move on the turn to get on top of those horses, and he buried that field. I mean, this horse is really sharp right now, and I do think he's the horse to beat.
The number 6 is This Is Uskar, who's also coming out of that race that was won by Henro, where Molly's Town was 3rd. He was contesting the pace that day. I thought all in all, got a pretty good trip, popped out at the top of the stretch, had his chance, and just kind of never really finished off the race. That was over a muddy track, but he's a horse who had handled a sealed track in the past, so I don't know if that's a big excuse for him. I just haven't really seen the progression from this guy.
Yeah, that's what you're waiting for with a horse like him. He's a 4-year-old now, newly turned. He's only got 6 starts, so maybe he's got a forward move in him, but right so far he's just sort of attained a level. And if he runs to that level in this race, he's not going to beat this field.
There is quite a bit of rain predicted on Thursday at Oaklawn, so we'll see if the track is still wet by Friday. And if it is wet, that would certainly help the number 7 Major Blue, who does seem to really move up over a wet track. A lot of his top buyer speed figures and his best results have been earned over sealed, muddy racetracks. Kind of missed his opportunity to get to do his best running over one last time, though, because he got completely eliminated at the start of that race won by a red flag that we've already talked about. Stumbled very badly. Kind of amazing that the jockey was able to stay on, and just was basically eased after that. Did not put forth a competitive effort, but he was only 7-1 in that race because I think the bettors realized this horse has some races in his past that would put him in the mix here. He's just not the most consistent sort, but you go back and look at some of the fields that he's faced over the past 6 or 7 months. I mean, Mulligan, Scotland, Gun Pilot, horses that have been competitive in hot top-level graded stakes races. So I think this might be a little bit of class relief from some of the races he's been in recently, but he's got to put forth one of his better efforts.
Yeah, Yeah, I agree. You don't know, you don't always know what you're going to get with him, but his good race will give him a real chance in here. The 20-1 morning line just feels like too big a price to me. If he was around that, anywhere near that, I would use him somewhere. You've already mentioned all the positives with him, David. He's also got a little bit of speed, but doesn't need the lead to be effective. He really likes Oaklawn Park. He's run well here several times in the past. I mean, I could easily make a case for this horse, just giving him a pass for that last one where he totally bungled the start.
Some changes for the number 8 Friar Lawrence, who is switching from synthetic back over to dirt, where he's done most of his running, also making his first start switching into the John Ortiz barn. John Ortiz, I think, is a nice trader, but has good stats overall, just hasn't really been getting off to a great start at this current Oaklawn meet, so we'll see if this is really a positive move for Friar Lawrence. Has spent most of his recent races against slightly weaker competition than this, did step up to this level last time at Turfway, and got a pretty good trip, broke well, was on top of the pace, just didn't really finish off that race, and just feels like he'd have to do better to be competitive against this group.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe you'll see a little bit of a different trip from this horse too. I mean, he's shown speed in his last 2 starts, but he's capable from off the pace, and maybe they'll just sort of sit back a little bit in this race and hope for some pace to develop in front of him. I didn't love him in this spot. I thought he was in really, really tough, but there could be a different trip coming.
The number 9 Runaway Jack feels like a real wild card in this race because he ran very well in the first 8 starts of his career, was never out of the exacta, actually second 4 times in a row, and then first 4 times in a row. But all of those victories came at Delaware Park, and you generally consider the competition horses are facing at Delaware to be a little thinner than what you're going to meet at Oaklawn, especially when it comes to field size. He did earn a nice 95 buy or 2 back, but that was all the way back at the end of 2023, and he disappointed when he returned to Oaklawn Park for his final start of that season. We now haven't seen him for over a year. This trainer just has merely decent numbers off layoffs and has 0 for 20 so far at the Oaklawn Park meet. So just not really sure what to do with this horse.
Yeah, just a lot. Just he's got so much working against him here. I do think he's talented enough to go with these horses. Assuming everything was equal, but it's not equal. This horse has been away for a really, really long time. Certainly flashed some real ability when we last saw him, but he's got a lot to overcome here.
The number 10, Invulnerable, is coming out of a race that would make him highly competitive against this field. If he were able to repeat it here, we'll actually take a look at the replay of that event. It is that red flag common race that we've been talking about, a few of these exiting, and Invulnerable is the one that achieved the best result behind the winner that day. And he's actually pretty game to battle this horse all the way down to the wire. That kind of moved in tandem at the top of the stretch. Invulnerable is going to switch back over to his left lead here, trying to find a little bit extra to get to red flag at the end, but still game finishing second to this foe, earning a 90 buyer, kind of getting back to some of the best form that he had displayed early in his career. First off the claim for a new barn this day, one that does not have a whole lot of horses. So, Mike, if you trust him to repeat this kind of performance, he's a major player. The problem is he was 13-1 last time and feels like he's going to be a fraction of that price here.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. He ran fine in the last one, and if he runs that back against this field, he's probably a contender in here. I'll make him do it if he's going to be anywhere. The 4-1 morning line just makes him completely uninteresting to me. But listen, he ran the 90 last time, and that's not the first figure he's run that would give him a real chance in this race. He can win. I'm probably not betting him around the morning line.
We've discussed several horses coming out of that red flag race run over the muddy track back at the beginning of January. Carbone was contesting the pace through the early stages of that spot. He was off a layoff that day, just got a little tired at the end. You could see he wasn't really picking up when those horses came to him on the outside. This is a horse that they had aspirations to get onto the Kentucky Derby trail last year. It just didn't really work out. Maybe the added distance wasn't really up his alley. I haven't seen him really take a step forward since the first couple starts of his career, Mike, but maybe that move forward will come second off the layoff.
Yeah, maybe second off the layoff. And I maybe it'll come sprinting too, David. I just think this horse is a sprinter, and I understand why they wanted to stretch him out and see if they could get to the Derby with him, because his debut, by the way, which is still the only time he sprinted over fast dirt, it's a really impressive performance. And he came right back, and he ran well going the mile in his next start, but just pressing on in longer distance races, I don't think it really helped this horse. You already mentioned the most recent start. It was off of a almost 6-month layoff there, and he got really tired in that race. Like, he needed it. Contested the pace around the turn. He's going up and down for about the final 3/16 of a mile, and there had absolutely nothing left. He looked like a horse who really needed that race.
The number 12 is Echo Again, a horse who was in the Steve Asmussen barn for much of his career, and another one who started off his career very impressively when he won his debut race and had aspirations to get him on the Derby Trail at different points, going all the way back to 2023. That didn't really work out. Since then, he's been turned back to sprint distances, has kind of found his level against high-level claiming company or optional claimers. Did drop in class last time into that $50,000 beaten claiming race at Churchill Downs, and the class relief really seemed to do the trick, as he was just better than those horses, was bet down to even money, and won like an even money shot should. Visually impressive in victory, claimed out of that race by trainer Norm Cassie, who doesn't have great numbers first off the claim, but typically does do very well at this Oaklawn Park meet. And I think the outside post could be perfect for a horse that doesn't want to get shuffled back too far, might be able to work out a good trip from a stalking position.
Yeah, agree with all that stuff. I mean, he just wasn't going anywhere for Asmussen last year. The drop in class helped him. This could actually turn out to be a decent claim, I think, for these connections. He's just another horse who, to me, is not an interesting price on the morning line. At 6-1 isn't the kind of price I'd be looking to take on Echo Again. He ran fine last time, but he'll have to run better than that against this field.
We've got two pretty interesting horses that are stuck on the also eligible list. We'll see if either one gets into the race or if their connections actually do run if they get into the race. I would imagine Nash is going to run at Fairgrounds this weekend because he's entered there and is not drawn on the AE list in his race. Nasty Habit, we'll see if he shows up. He's got some races from his past for a different trainer now going out for Peter Miller, but both these horses have questions to answer off layoffs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they both have things working against them. They're both clearly good enough to beat this field if they're ready to go off the bench. Again, just wait for scratches, see if they get in, and then it's up to you what kind of price you want to take on these horses.
Well, Mike, I think we're going to stick with horses that are drawn in the main body of the race, and you are going to put, as we throw our picks up for this race, I think you went with the number 11, Carbone, on top, the horse who maybe needed his last race and just might be able to take a step forward.
Yeah, the forecast may not thrill me, David. We'll see if they get a wet track there. I'm hoping for fast dirt for him, but I do think ultimately this horse's future is going to lie in sprint races. He's second off the layoff here after getting really tired last time. I thought Attaché was the horse to beat, but I'll take a shot against him with Carbone.
Yeah, we both have some interest in the number 7, Major Blue, who might be able to bounce back from that poor start last time. I put the number 3, Chiringo, on top. I just didn't think he really showed up over the muddy track last time. Like I said, didn't love the trip that day. And he's got those races from Oaklawn Park last year that I do think put him in the mix against this field. So hoping he can bounce back at a little bit of a price. So 3, 12, 7, 5 for me, 11, 5, 7, 8 for Mike in race 7 at Oaklawn Park on Friday, the Friday race of the day. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.